Okay guys, I've decided I'm going to just make these videos as they come to me. And forgive me if I'm constantly looking away from the camera. I'm still getting used to this. I don't know how to edit anything, um, but I'm just trying to put information out there that I think is important. Um, I wanted to talk for a second about the dangers of teaching people victimhood. Now, many years ago, this is probably 2000, maybe 12 or 13, maybe a little after, I remember saying to someone that I believe that the way that slavery is taught in school was child abuse. Um, Little did I know that years later we would be talking about critical race theory and how that's taught. In fact, this was way before that. But I just remember thinking that saddling a kid with that kind of baggage going out into the world is so wrong. Now, I know that people would say that they're preparing their kids for the real world, this, that, or the other, but I reject that, and here's why. I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, and I don't remember being the victim of racism. And I don't feel that it was dangerous for me to not go around expecting to be the victim of racism. No doubt there's people out there that are going to say that that was a mistake, but ultimately, at the end of the day, um, God has not given us the spirit of fear. So it doesn't make sense to me that I would go around fearing that something bad's going to happen to me because someone doesn't like black people, when in fact something bad can happen to anyone at any time. Um, there was a time where I used to follow a lot of free of true crime stories, um, and that was just part of my being interested in human nature and how people behave, how they act, the worst things they do, the best things they do, how do they cope, different things like that. And I could, off the top of my head, name people of multiple races who have had terrible things happen to them. I remember seeing a story about, I want to say this family was Middle Eastern, but they were American, they were Middle Eastern descent. They were American and they lived in the United States. And one of the men in this story, and some of you may recognize this story, he killed his wife. And the one thing that stuck out to me in this particular story is that during the trial, or maybe the sentencing phase, the man who killed his wife's brother was ultimately the one who had gotten him to, I don't remember if he got him to confess or whether the guy just confessed to him, but ultimately his brother was testifying against him. And he said on the stand, and I cannot remember this woman's name, but he said, she was our family. We loved her too. And that really stuck out to me because obviously they did. She was the mother of his children. I can't remember how many they had. And he was brokenhearted that his brother had inflicted this damage on their family, even though this was his brother's wife. A horrible thing happened. And you know that there are countless stories like that. There are people who are kidnapped, abducted, attacked for various reasons. I had a person once that I worked with, and she was from Lebanon. She grew up in Lebanon. I think she said she moved to the United States when she was a teenager, if I'm not mistaken. She was one of the most interesting people that I ever met. But she used to talk about some of the trauma that she had growing up there, because she moved from, if I remember correctly, she moved in like the 80s, and that was during a time of war in that country. And she would talk about how she would hear bombs going off and how they were constantly taking shelter. And then she told me a horrifying story about how she remembered that her mom had a lot of problems, and her mom would go up on the roof and pray for a bomb to hit her. Like, how horrifying for a kid, right? So bad things can happen to anyone at any time. I don't know how many of you know. I think I would say the general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers. Mitch Kupchak. His daughter died when she was 16 in high school after an extended illness. He's rich. He's white. She was white. It's one of the most tragic things that I've ever experienced. And I knew her, by the way. So, I bad things happen to people, either because bad luck or bad karma, whatever you want to call it, just an unlucky draw of life's straw, if you believe in that, your fate. No particular group of people have a monopoly on being victimized or just having a bad lot in life. My daughter went to a private school, and at that private school, there were very wealthy people of multiple different races. And it was always the weirdest thing in the world to hear someone who was black or Hispanic or I never heard this from Asians. If I'm going to just be honest, that's if anybody has heard that, let me know in the comments. That's not this is I've never heard that sort of victim mentality from a person of Asian descent. But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I've never heard it. Someone who is literally a multimillionaire that lives in a mansion that thinks that they're a victim of racism. That's so weird. I know there are people who think that that's legitimate. I don't accept it. Anyway, so teaching kids victimhood, it's something that saddles them with a built-in excuse for not succeeding that they can't change. That what could be more wrong than that? I don't know what could be more cruel than that. Typically, I don't take sides on international conflicts, wars, things like that. I may have a belief about, the origins of it or where it started, but I feel like wars are something that people, ordinary people in a country, that's inflicted upon them by wicked leaders. That's what I believe. And I believe that that applies to both sides. So if you look at the war in Russia and in Ukraine, lots of people are dying on either side. And it doesn't matter, it's like one country has more people die than the other. I don't think that the number of people who die is an indication of who's right or who's wrong. So I think it's sad all around. The war in Gaza, I'm going to do a whole separate video about that because I have a take on this situation that I don't think I have heard anywhere. Maybe I have, but I'm going to go into a lot more details and what I think about that. And this is particularly, I don't want to say it's near and dear to my heart, but my daughter recently got married and one of her friends didn't come to her wedding because they had a falling out about that. And I thought it was sad, super sad, because, you can't take it back and people feel how they feel, but it's so hard for me to watch people fall into the trap of how can I put this? Fall into the trap of being angry and then making a decision that you can't undo or redo. Obviously, that doesn't mean that they'll never speak again. Probably they will, but she won't be able to go back and go to her wedding. So I don't like to see those kinds of things. So the idea that you would teach people victimhood and then have them use that as a crutch or a cudgel, I think cruel. If a person grows up, there are black people who don't succeed in life. There are white people who don't succeed in life. Don't laugh. There are Asian people who don't succeed in life. Yes, there are. There are people of every race that do succeed in life. And I hope that we are or will finally get past this point where we allow ourselves to use these kind of crutches. I said to someone recently that a person without legs cannot walk. And that's generally true. So if you have a person that's black without legs, they're not worse off. Neither one of them can walk. But that's where we've started to go with this particular crutch. You can't change it if you if you're black. So if that's the reason why you are prevented from doing something, then you're stuck. You can't do anything. And if one black person can succeed, I actually had somebody tell me once that they fell through the cracks. Apparently, their entire family, they were a black family, were quite wealthy, and they all fell through the cracks. Come on, that's absurd. At least I think so. If one person can make it, then that means that the reason that the other people are not making it, it's not because of race. It has to be something else. I know a lot of people reject that, but I don't reject it. I hope to make other videos that will go into more detail about this and provide more evidence. I don't know how to edit, so it's very difficult for me to include some of the information on the spot that I want to include. But hopefully I'll get better with this. Right now, I'm just being led to put the videos out as the message comes to me, and to share it and go from there. So I'd like to get the conversation going in the comments and see what you guys think. Most of the people that I know now have started to reject this idea. I was very successful in my profession, and the problems that I ran into, which I will talk about on the channel later in more detail, had nothing to do with my race, and it had to do with sort of not going along to get along. And I think that if you allow yourself to be drawn into the whole issue of race, I think that black people in particular, and I don't know if this is common in the Hispanic community or not, but you have people that are put before you and you think, see, okay, well, if we just get more black people that are judges, if we just get more black people that are politicians, then we can finally get to the point where we have equality. You think? Look around. So let's stop teaching the victimhood. Let's stop saddling people with that millstone around their neck as they grow up. I am, I'm so sad to see that happening, and I would like to see that be something that we just don't do anymore. So, like, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.